All right, hi everybody. My name is Cheryl Eriksen, and I am an author. And I'm here today to do a reading from my book, Follow Me Friend. And it's about my experience living with PTSD from a trauma that I didn't have a conscious memory of. And because of this, I had all the symptoms of PTSD, but I didn't know what was going on, so I hid it from everybody. And because trauma isn't necessarily something that's held in your mind, it is held in your body. I continue to have physical experiences and mental experiences which I couldn't understand, and I hid them from everybody. And the part that I'm going to read, I'll give you a little explanation for, is uh, because I wasn't familiar with what was happening to me. Like I said, I hid it from a lot of people, but I had kind of my personality, not a multiple personality, but it separated into different parts. So there, you're going to hear in here a part called Mean Cheryl and a part called Little Cheryl. So I'm going to go ahead and read from chapter 8 of Follow Me Friend. They're all going to find out, Mean Cheryl taunted. They're going to find out who and what you really are. The now familiar guilt and anxiety rolled in my belly, and I sucked in a short breath, releasing it sharply between my pressed lips. I counted the horse and rider pairs lined up ahead of me and Corky. 1, 2, 3, 4. Time was running short before our turn came to navigate the next jumping obstacle. My time at Blackhawk College neared an end. After this last semester, I would graduate with 2 degrees in horse science, 1 degree with a training focus and the other with a management focus. For my last couple semesters, Corky lived at school, and I used him in class. Despite the improvement in my riding from my coursework and time spent on Danny's stallion tag, I still lacked confidence in myself and my ability. This went double for work over fences. A course called Hunt Seat Equitation, where the majority of the work focused on jumping, stood between me and graduation. Corky and I had jumped before, many times. I'd even shown him over fences a couple of times, but none of that mattered. I knew I wasn't any good at anything. Corky loved to jump, and he was quite talented. But due to my extreme insecurity in myself and my riding, I did more to hinder rather than help him with our jumping efforts. On this day in class, we were working on a jump configuration called a bounce. 2 fences placed close together, so the horse must jump the first fence, land, and immediately jump the second fence, as there is no room to add a stride. The bounce petrified me. The horses and riders were all lined up along the fence, head to tail, waiting for their turn to attempt to bounce. Familiar fear festered in my belly, growing with each step, moving Corky and me closer to the head of the line. I knew my horse could jump the bounce easily. I'd seen him do such a jump before with my former 4-H leader in the saddle. I also had far more experience than many of my classmates and an honest horse to ride, but far too soon my turn came. With all the confidence of a guppy surrounded by hungry piranhas, I took up contact with the reins until I could lightly feel Corky's mouth. Just barely squeezing him with my lower legs, I gave a scarcely audible click-click sound with my tongue in cheek. Corky, having already seen the fence, readily moved forward into a bold trot. With mild panic gripping me, I quickly shortened the reins, slowing Corky to a dawdling jog. Let go of his face, Cheryl. Move him forward a little faster, the instructor cautioned over the loudspeaker. I knew Corky didn't have enough momentum to successfully navigate the bounce. Fully aware that I was setting us up to fail, still I couldn't make myself ride the horse. I hung on like a useless passenger, bracing myself for a disaster of my own making. Corky slowly jogged toward the fence. Give him more gas, the instructor yelled. Can't. I knew she was right. Corky needed to go faster, but too afraid I did nothing. Being the kind and honest horse he was, Corky tried to make up for his lack of momentum by rocking back and leaping straight up and over the fence in a deer-style jump. My body snapped back, bent forward, completely out of sync with the motion of the horse. I slammed back into the saddle, unprepared for the second fence. Corky stopped abruptly, hurling me over his shoulder. I landed painfully in a heap on the ground between the jumps. Shame burned my cheeks, a fierce red. Uninjured, I forced myself to get back on and try again. For a moment, saving face trumped my fear. I pushed Corky forward toward the bounce. What have I got to lose? I've already made an ass of myself. I held my breath on the approach. Breathe, stupid. So I kept my leg on, keeping Corky's forward momentum. Jump, land, canter off. We did it. But mean Cheryl wouldn't allow me to feel victorious. Should have done it right the first time, you stupid cow. Interestingly, or perhaps tellingly, I approached most challenges in my life like I approached the bounce that day, knowing I wasn't giving myself enough or any chance to succeed, unable to do anything about it, accepting defeat without trying, not out of laziness, from a deep knowing that I would never be good enough, never amount to anything, never matter to anyone. I successfully finished my coursework for the final semester and graduated with 2 associate degrees, equestrian science and horse science technology. I hope you go on to more schooling, Cheryl. My instructor placed her left hand over my right, giving our handshake a final pump. I turned and faced away slightly, but held her eye contact, as any adult is expected to. You're very smart, she smiled and turned away to greet other students milling around after the graduation ceremony. Confusion. Her words made me feel good about myself, like a tiny slice of hope peeking through a barely open door. And bang, mean Cheryl slammed it shut in my face. She's just saying that because you're no good with horses. She's trying to be nice. You're so damn gullible. She was right, of course. Not smart, not talented, not anything. Defeat. Will I ever be enough? Mentally spiraling down at an ever-increasing pace, for the first time, I went beyond considering suicide and started making plans to end my life. So that is a passage that really kind of sums up the experience of living with that trauma response and not understanding what's going on. I know now the voice of mean Cheryl was there to protect me in a way, even though she was really horrible and made sure I felt really awful. That was just her role, was to keep me from reaching out to other people. I didn't feel safe, like I could judge people. It was after this point that I eventually recovered the memories from the childhood sexual abuse when I was in my 30s. I finally recovered it, and then things started to change for me. And I'm going to read another section. We're going to fast forward from this part that I just read about 20 years and go to what happened next. And as I recovered the memories, my therapist at the time, she questioned, she wanted to know if I was angry, I guess, at the person who had abused me, and wanted me to explain my loss. And I had never thought of it that way. I had always felt like I didn't deserve to be angry. Like, why would I be angry? I was already convinced I was this horrible person, so why would I deserve anything different? And so I wrote this next part. Pardon me a second.
Would you really be interested in working for the move? How you just got her email? Yeah. Are you willing to move, or do you need to stay in Pennsylvania?
I realized that I did feel a loss, and I did have anger, and I wrote this piece here as a result of that. I didn't often write poetry. I did not enjoy the rigidity of rhyme, and I never seemed to find the rhythm. I always felt forced when I set out to write a poem, and it never came out as anything meaningful to me. Not like prose, a way I could easily reach inside and pull out my thoughts, dreams, ideas, and emotions in a way I could never speak them. But sometimes an emotion felt so intense, and the need to express it so strong, that it came out in a rush of written words and verses, sliding one beneath the other, seldom rhyming but always delivered with a fiercely felt urgency to get the words on the paper right now. It had happened to me a few times where the tension and emotion built to the boiling point, forcing me to stop whatever I was doing and write. My mind went to another place, and words flew from my pen, scattering across the page. Once the poem appeared on the paper, the tension released, and my mind returned to my body, the cathartic moment over. I shifted in my seat in the observation room at the bowling barn, felt anxious, my hands tingled, and my thumbs rubbed the sides of my index fingers. Something was building, I could feel it. I would have to let it out soon. I walked down the barn aisle and checked my mares. None were close to foaling, but I had to make sure that nothing was going on. The mares were more than my job. I cared deeply for them. They were part of my family. The horses were quiet, some munching hay and others dozing. I returned to the observation room, picked up a pencil, opened my art journal, and wrote this poem. How my heart perceives the loss. Afraid to approach, so I could see what it was. A horse. She was dead. Lying on her side, wrapped in silence, like the dark cloak that clung heavily to a hidden part of my soul. Her tail, baby curls still twirling the ends, lay perfectly still in the gray-green grass. It would never grow any longer, never squish away a pesky fly, never flip over her back in sheer exuberance and play, never fly out behind her a burnished bronze flag catching the first rays of the early morning sun. I inched closer to her, somehow drawn to this corpse lying motionless on the rocky ground. Sunlight streamed off her red-tinged auburn coat. She was a beautiful horse. I could imagine the sparkle of life and adventurous spirit that had once lit up her now vacant eyes. Hers was not a quick death. The grass showed no evidence of thrashing hooves. Her coat, sleek and unrutted, she had simply lain down, never to rise again. Prone in the baking sun, as color ran from the landscape and her life seeped slowly into the ground, the last breath escaped her flared nostrils and her spirit drifted. I knelt by her, stroking her silky neck, tracing a jagged scar with my finger. I spoke to her softly. Tears brimmed from my eyes and streaked down my tired face. My chest heaved, air caught in my throat, my body shook. I screamed, I cried, I pounded my fists into her flesh, red with anger, fierce with grief. I screamed, I trembled, I pounded. She stirred. Gasping for air, wretched agony, my heart throbbed, pulse pounding. I stirred. She lifted her head from the greening grass. Color poured from her body, painting the landscape with vibrant hues. She looked deeply into my eyes. Fire passed between us, passion, understanding, grief, loss. With great effort, she heaved herself to her feet, gentle breeze lifting her mane, the silence broken. She stood over me, energy passed between us, empathy rising, deep loss, also gratitude. Lightning streaked across the heavens. Thunder crashed into the space between us. She turned slowly, casting a measured glance over her shoulder. She ambled away toward what could have been. Brilliant orange and yellow streaks break up the blackened sky. I turned and walked toward the rising sun, having finally grieved for what I lost.
Wow. Wow.
I'm gonna pause a second. That sorry, there's bugs. That was a really profound moment for me because I had never grieved, and it's a really great look at how I make sense of my life through horses. That's always how I interpreted my world, and it was my horse, Arletta, that led me on this healing journey. She's the one who's on the covers of my books, and she's the reason that I'm still here today. I think I'm going to end there, but if anybody has any questions or comments, I'm happy to answer.
That was beautiful, simply beautiful. Thank you so much. And I think you've just walked yourself into something else you're going to be doing at this event. That was beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm listening. I'm just still digesting. It's a lot. And I know it's just different parts of the book, and I imagine you'd have to read it, comprehend it.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel kind of bad that I tossed that heavy stuff out without giving enough context. But yeah, and it is a continuing story of living for over 30 years with PTSD and not knowing what was going on. But it was my horse, Arletta, who's on the cover of all my books, who is the one who helped me to understand what was going on. And the way that she did that was through changing her behavior toward me. And she, we had a really close relationship, and then we had an accident. And the accident itself was a very odd convergence of energy that I don't think was an accident. I think that was something that needed to happen, and that is what actually started shaking the memories loose and bringing the trauma back up. But as that was coming up, Arletta went from being happy to see me, I'd go out to see her, she's like, oh, you're here, looking at me, touching my hands and stuff. I'd get a halter on her and get her out. She completely changed. She didn't want me to touch her, she just danced and fidgeted and everything. And because I had a horse training background, I knew how to fix that. She was a showmanship horse, she had been halter, she was really well trained, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I was curious about her behavior instead, and because of that curiosity is actually what caused me to go find help and to get into therapy. Not that, I was apparently willing to tolerate all this other stuff in my life, but I was not okay with my horse not liking me anymore. And so that's where the beginning of our journey was, and that became part of her purpose. I don't even want to say purpose because that makes her an object. That became her role in my life. She became a barometer of my internal struggles. And when I had something that I was holding in and needed to talk about, that's when she would change. And when I would talk to her physically out loud, Arletta, this is what's happening, that's when her behavior would change back. So just that releasing of that energy. So that's kind of our story. It's in both of the books together.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Stop here.